Hidden in the middle of the desert is an old city that looks like something out of a fairy tale. It is the oldest skyscraper city in the world. Hundreds of apartments are dotted across the city skyline, some reaching up to the Yara floor. Think of today's skyscrapers of concrete and steel. But this city is 2,000 years old and still made of clay. Now the question is, who built this city? Why are the buildings so tall? And how did they build it 2,000 years ago? This is the unique city of Shiyum in Yemen, also known as the archaeological. Not sure that seeing this ancient city for the first time is such an old city so modern. Even if Manhattan, a part of New York, complies with this, Shibam has its own special thing. This city is only 330 meters wide and 240 meters long. That is, in modern cities, winning apartments. But Shibam has a population of only 7,000, and its population density is quite high. That is, there are more people living in a very small area. And of course, it is also many years older than normal cities. But Shibam is not only special, its environment also makes it more valuable. Throughout the region, people use mud bricks, but such tall buildings are only seen in Shibam. This is even more strange but amazing. Why didn't they spread the roads to this city despite having so many places around? Why is only the High Shiv in Yemen, a place you may have heard about in the news headlines right now? Targeting Yemen, including the international airport and the capitals, ports and energy infrastructure,
including the international airport in the capital Sana'a.
Airstrikes in Yemen targeting ports and energy infrastructure.
Houthi media said multiple people were killed in the strikes.
The strike hitting the Yemeni port city of Hodeidah.
Today you are going to see an important aspect of this country. The story of Shibam tells the story of the harsh environment of the people who live here. A vibrant community facing challenges, and now the city itself is in danger. But before we hear the story of the people of Shibam, one question comes to mind. Why did the city need to be built in the middle of the desert itself? The answer to this question lies in the geography of Yemen. The orange and red but most of Yemen is deserted. Most people live in the western part of the country, in the mountains where there are cities like Sana'a, or on the coast in areas like Aden. The middle of the country is a vast desert where barely anyone lives. But this is where you find human settlements in the cracks of the plates. One such settlement is Shiyum. These cracks are formed for reasons that are very important for human life. Shiyum in the water is the death of Wadi Ahdara. The plain is actually called a dry riverbed, which is calm for most of the year. But here the rivers flow during the rainy season, and this water can be stored for drinking and also used for farming. The Sweet made it an important place for settlement near the weddings in the areas. It is because of this water, Shibam also became an important part of the ancient trade network. The people living here traded between India and Africa. Shibam is also mentioned in Greek sources and has been part of many kingdoms and empires. But it was a new name for the European explorers. At Athene 1903, when the first time Western travelers turned here, looking from a distance, they were not sure if these were a rock. Mountains here, but these were not a rock, but these were Shibam, about 500 houses standing in the middle of the valley, in a small place. The European travelers compiled the city of Shibam from Chicago, perhaps because of the reason why a building in Chicago, in Athene 85, was ranked among the world's first skyscraper. A building that built on steel structure, but Shibam is quite different from that, because it used not steel but clay. Those who settled here were faced with a difficult situation. The weather here is often hotter than 40 degrees C, and there is no drac here whose support is. The desert stone is so strict that it can be used just to build the foundation of the building. That's why people here started to visit local materials. He made a slurry of clay and made it brink, which was dried in the sun. 16 laborers could make 8,000 bricks in one day. And the houses that are built with these bricks, their lifespan is 300 years. But maintaining the city is a consistent running processor. Those who use these materials also have their bearing on the design of buildings. The base of the house was kept more wide to make the foundation stronger. The walls from the bottom were kept thick for a meter, and above these thickness is just 30 centimeters thin. After applying the ante, they would be covered with gare plaster, but these were also quite challenging for the floors above. The parts above the buildings were covered with white line plaster, due to which the portion above also remains waterproof and also cold. Paunchy buildings in this desert, it used to keep the walls cool. Being closer does not fall on the sun's heat directly walls, and the soil plaster works like an insulator. which does not let the heat come in. Also, the reflexive properties of the white line further reduces heat. But the question is, why did those people not apply white line plaster on the whole buildings itself? It has a direct answer that lime was very expensive at that time, and that is why these became a status symbol, which was the most important buildings, as mosques. She was completely covered with wide line. But there are more ways to show status. Apartment blocks are made from doors on which gorgeous designs can be seen, but there are your challenges to build such high buildings. These houses do not have elevators. So how do people manage these? People here see it like a sports. Going down 2 to 3 floors every day is common for them, but these are quite difficult for elderly people, but not just people. Big stuff and modern things also have to be taken up. Today, Shibam people use refrigerators and air conditioning units, and these items are pulled through the rope to carry them up and offered them up, as the stairs become more thin after the 4th floor. Here, every floor has a special motive. The ground floor is meant for storage and shops, which earlier closed from the threat of wild animals. The 1st floor is used for animals. The 3rd floor family area for the 2nd floor men and guests, where kitchens are also built, and the floors at the top are used to sleep. Real question is yet there. Why did such a high city last 2,000 years ago, when the desert was lying empty around? The old round people often used to settle settlements on the mountains or the Uchai. One of its major reasons was that there could have been better avoided by wild animals and enemy attacks. But when the place is low, you have to go to Uchai. According to archaeological excavations, people were building 4-story houses in this region only 2,000 years ago. But Shibam is still much higher than the rest of the cities. Hadra Death Valley often lived on the target of hammers. That's why the houses here are so near made. People wanted to expand the city horizontally, but the empty space was quite low. That is why he decided to vertically expand the city in 700 AHE 1301. But why was the place less here? The answer is a really hiding happening 500 years ago that changed Shibam forever. 2 large FLDs of the year 12198 and 1532 broke the large parts of the city. At that time, Shibam was surrounded by water. Just like a peninsula, these floods gave the city the shape that we see today. From then on, the people here started building high houses. This city became the hands of the same people who have been living here for centuries. Shibam is an example of Insan Azam, where even among the difficulties, people stood a unique city. But the threat to comfort and unique community on it still exists today. A big cyclone in 2008 came towards Yemen, which also became a sub of Shadid Sailab. Some of Shibam's buildings fell and many people lost their hands with life. There could also be more damage here if their houses were not high. Another major threat to this city is the rusty moving in Yemen, because of which the highest impact has been on inflation. Nowadays, a laborer is barely able to buy something. And then that sentence of 2009 when a terrorist cut 4 South Koreans and their guide. Tourism is absolutely over here because of the rust and awe. Noise. The explosions have been happening in and out of the city, which leave bad impact on the locals. The tourism that was here is now completely over, which was once the only source of many mines here. But despite all these threats, Shibam still stands and its people puddle up on their city. They love their city so much that they praise it everywhere. The people here live side by side. There is also a lot of social with your neighbor and friends. If a family is in some difficulty, the rest of the families take care of him because they know that he will also get help when needed. All these are so much connected among themselves that the command doors of some houses also go to the 3rd floor, i.e., those who are elderly people to move from one house to another. Doesn't have to get down, where 3 to 4 families gather in the same house. When all these we see make sense that these places are far more than the noise headline. Shibam is a tremendous example of human creativity. The people here in a defeat resin, with limited resources and made no for humans, are just living in the climate and driving life to success. Though concrete and steel may also be used here in today's era, these people are keeping the old rituals of their city alive even today. Also, you guys will like and share a lot. You are extremely thankful to the loving comments of people.